Welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Today, we've got another good one for you. I'm chatting to Zach Petersen about what happened to Trail Peak, the YouTube channel him and his brother ran, Zach's recovery from a really traumatic brain injury, and his path back to riding. And then we talk about generally what's inspiring us in the mountain bike scene. There's timestamps in the description, so feel free to jump around. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. We got Zach Petersen here. Yeah, stoked to have you on, Zach.
Stoked to be
I think people that have watched this video, there's a good chance that they either know of Trail Peak or have watched a Trail Peak video. So I feel like that's a good place to start.
Trail Peak. What was Trail Peak? That was a YouTube channel that Dane and I started. We were heavily inspired by Nate Hills. Dane actually had gone on a bit of a riding trip with Nate Hills, Mason Bond, about that time, earlier in Nate Hills' POV YouTube career. We saw him doing that, and it was getting really popular, and really he was the only one doing it at the time. I think there was some small channels popping up here and there, and we anticipated that becoming more popular than it already was, and we wanted to create, some kind of exposure of that sort to California and West Coast riding. And a big goal of it really was to expose people to other areas that are fun to ride, other fun places to ride locally. At that time, Dane and I were very active on the MTBR forums, MTBR NorCal forum, and we felt that people just got into a routine of riding their local 1 to 2 trails and not exploring a whole lot else. Like maybe they would do a Tahoe trip or a Downeyville trip once a year, twice a year, whatever. But yeah, we wanted to inspire people to explore and check out all the sick riding that there really is in California when you get out of your one scene and go, say you're up here near Auburn or Placerville or wherever, and then you go down to San Luis Obispo in the middle of winter. There is really fun stuff down there. Or you go down to Southern California, or you go up to Humboldt, or wherever it may be. There is lots of fun, cool, sanctioned riding in California. Is it the best in the world? No, not really, but it's still super fun for everyone, really. So that was a bit of the goal there, and just expose people to our perspective on riding, what riding was to us, going fast, racing, exploring new trails, doing big backcountry rides. I think we just wanted to create a platform and expose people to what we were doing.
Yeah, dude. When that was going, I mean, it was rad. I feel like you guys had a lot of momentum, and it's funny now. Like when I was in New Zealand, I was like, oh, like what's up with the trails in Nelson or that one bike park you guys went to, the Gorge, right?
Wairoa Gorge.
Yeah, Wairoa Gorge, and I'm like, oh shoot, Trail Peak's got to be. When I'm researching to go places, your videos still pop up. Yeah, I guess from there, how did it run its course? Kind of where did it go? Because it's kind of been quiet for the past few years.
Yeah, so I think the first step in the downfall of Trail Peak was I broke my tibia and fibula early 2020. Yeah, 2019, 2020, right when COVID was starting. I broke my fib, and I was a majority of the. I had way more free time to spend on Trail Peak than Dane did at in that year. So I was a majority of the content creation behind it, and so you can't really make videos with a broken leg. We didn't make any videos during that time. And then I think after that, it was just we were a bit burnt out. Even prior to me breaking my leg, we were a bit burnt out. To run a YouTube channel, a successful YouTube channel, there are Like if you go down that rabbit hole of how to run a successful YouTube channel, like one of the most important things is having constant weekly uploads, like on a has to be very, very regular weekly basis. Like, yep, I upload Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or whenever it is, but just having that regularity so that the, you know, algorithm or whatever you want to call it for YouTube knows to like, oh, yep, we're expecting a Trail Peak video, so like once it's uploaded at 7 p.m., we'll like blast it out to all of the, people who like that content, and I don't know, etc. Whatever. Yeah, it's just like that's a lot of work trying to make videos of you riding some sick new different trail on your mountain bike every week. Yeah, it's really hard. The constant churn of content didn't really align with what Dane and I were doing at the time. I mean, we were really focusing in on digging. We were focusing in on just riding locally and digging locally, and yeah, we just weren't too keen on making these weekend trips to places just to keep the YouTube channel alive. Like I loved doing it, but yeah, that was kind of the downfall of it.
Yeah, it seems like with that model, it's like it's only sustainable for so long just because there's a finite amount of trails. I mean, it seems like you guys were taking like bigger and bigger trips to ride, you know, cool trails in farther away places, but then yeah, that just becomes like a bigger and bigger investment to like yeah, go make a YouTube video.
Yeah, and that was a draw too. Like I my whole entire New Zealand trip, the first New Zealand trip I took, that was all funded by Trail Peak. Like that was incredible. Like it literally did fund our mountain biking addictions, whether it was through sponsorships or YouTube revenue, like just checks from YouTube. Um, yeah, it was huge in that. Um, but yeah, it just there just came a point where it was like, okay, we can't really be flying around the world all the time, like or just making these videos all the time. We weren't too interested in becoming like YouTube personalities where we just, all right, I'm just gonna set up the camera in the garage and chat about whatever it is. There's plenty of people who do that now, and there's a space for that, and that's cool that they do that. But um, we weren't interested in that. Go ahead.
So after Trail Peak, I guess what was your relationship with mountain bike or with mountain biking? Like, where did you put your energy? And I guess, yeah, where has that led you since?
After that, our focus was highly on digging trail. Our focus was on racing. We weren't racing at like we weren't terribly competitive in the race circuit. Top tens, whatever here and there, but we weren't competing for podiums. So it's not like we were competing as like professional racers. It was just part of the hobby. Rocky Mountain, our sponsor at the time, they valued us just having a presence on the races in the race circuit because that's an extremely valuable thing for a brand like Rocky Mountain, which isn't terribly common or wasn't terribly common back when we were on them to make a presence on the California race circuit. That's valuable for them. And we actually did speak to them about like, hey, hooking us up, supporting us, you are really supporting the trails in our area. So that is they gelled with that, and yeah, they found value in just supporting basically us as influencers, posting on Instagram here and there, not so much the YouTube anymore at all. Um, and yeah, that took that things sustained like that for a couple years, 2 years. until about early 2022. Mutual friends reached out asking if I would be interested in working for World Class Mountain Bike Academy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for people that don't know, because I want to kind of dive in on this one a little bit, because I had never heard of World Class, and yeah, just hearing your experience about it was super interesting. For people who don't know, like, what is World Class Academy?
World Class Academy is a private high school boarding school that travels around the world to mountain bike destinations while also holding a very high focus and priority on great academics um, for high school aged kids and developing the students of the program into well rounded adults while also developing their athletics.
How did you get involved in it, and yeah, what did it look like for you? And I guess also, like, what
Yeah.
does it look like for a kid in one of these programs? Because it sounds honestly like kind of the dream if I'm
Right.
looking at it from a high schooler's perspective.
So I got connected to the program through a mutual friend who worked or friends who worked for the Kayak Academy, because World Class Academy, they run three other schools that focus on other extreme sports. They do a rock climbing academy, they do a whitewater kayaking academy, they do a kite surfing academy,
Oh, really?
and
They do kite surfing?
yeah. So all the academies operate on the same principles. We're going to travel the world to destinations for our sport, but we're also going to focus on academics and mentorship on creating just well-rounded adults. So what does that look like for faculty? I'll just walk you through a regular day for me. So I was the head coach of the mountain bike academy, and if it's a weekday during the school week, um, Monday through Friday, really, our day starts at 6:30 in the morning with morning workout, and morning workout gets all the kids up and out of bed and just kind of like gets their blood pumping. Morning workout is mandatory to attend if you want to ride that day. So that's how my day started. As the head coach, I would be pretty much 90% of the time responsible for hosting morning workout. No, I'm not trying to, shake these kids up with a tough workout in the morning. I would really just run them a bit, stretch, and then you move into breakfast. And then after breakfast, there is study hall, which is an hour of study time or homework based focused time for the kids. Keep in mind also, as the head coach, I also taught physics and geometry. So I would, during study hall, I might help out some of my students with their geometry or physics homework, or help them prepare for an upcoming test. And all of the other faculty would be doing something similar. Again, study hall is mandatory attendance if you want to ride that day. From study hall, you move into a regular high school schedule. All the kids had different schedules. There might be several classes going on at the same time. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think I hosted physics, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I had geometry, were my first two classes right after study hall. And if you weren't teaching, you were probably helping out some of the other faculty with things like breakfast, or, well, yeah, cooking breakfast, because the faculty also cook food for the whole entire academy. You'd help out with breakfast, lunch, or dinner, go out grocery shop, run little errands for your kids. Maybe Matt broke his axle or forgot his axle at home in the United States, and you had to go hunt down an axle for this kid. Oh, but it's also a Santa Cruz axle, so it's like highly proprietary. Yeah, special order one. Whatever it may be. You run into stuff like that, putting out fires. And after class, you move into your ride. and go ride. And then as the head coach, I had to plan the rides for the week. I'd kind of tailored that onto what kids needed to work on, tailored that onto what they enjoyed riding, um, tailored that towards like what I wanted them to see. Maybe when they were in class, like head coach Zach went and sussed out some sick trail over here, like we're all going to go rip it after class. It sounds amazing, and it is amazing, but there's so much work in between all those. In between, it's just endless amounts of work. Maybe one of your kids is sick. Maybe one of your kids is homesick. Maybe one of your kids is injured. Whatever it may be, not doing well in class. Because each faculty is responsible for 2 to 3 kids. Specifically, you're a mentor. You're assigned kids to mentor, and you have little meetings with your kids throughout the week to check in on them, give them advice on how they're doing. You're kind of their main contact for anything they need. You're their first contact with their parents. And yeah, that's another thing that you're responsible for, writing weekly updates to kids' parents back home, because the parents send their kids across the world with like tons of people they never even met, they don't even know. They want to hear about their kids, and
like what's going on out there.
Yeah. So you take a lot of photos of their kids, send them back to their parents, tell their kid to call them, because kids don't do that.
It's like you're the family's uncle. That's like you're like the cool uncle that's like taking them on a road trip to Spain, and then but also their high school teacher. It's a lot.
Yeah. and yeah, it's an incredible program for all these kids who are fortunate enough to do it. And keep in mind, there is a pretty extensive financial support system within the school. So it's not that every kid is some wealthy kid. There is financial aid for plenty of the students. Certainly, it's a very expensive program, but there is financial aid. So, I felt that the kids were very well rounded. There was a very broad spectrum of kids, and all of them were incredibly grateful for where they were at. They were all very grateful for it. Just to touch on that, like that's a common thing that I hear is like, oh man, those kids must have been brats or something. Like, no, they're all really good, awesome kids. I've never taught before. Learning to teach physics and geometry, learning to coach mountain bikes, learning to mentor kids. I really enjoyed teaching. Teaching was honestly something that I always thought I could maybe do, but I think I really liked just the mentoring the most. Working with young adults, it's often a mirror back at yourself. You're like, oh, hey, don't do that thing. Like,
yeah.
You're like, damn, I shouldn't do that either. So I think that just the whole experience taught me so much, and it's an incredibly valuable experience that I got to do, and yeah, incredibly grateful for all of it. Just like all the in between moments are super cool. Like, how many other people would go spend 2 months in Spain, living in some rural part of the country, and go visit this grocery store like once a week, and like leave with 2 shopping carts, and like everyone at the store knows you because like, oh, here's that American again, like filling up 2 shopping carts with tons of food. Damn, those Americans eat a lot. Like,
that's
like
awesome.
No, you don't understand. I got 16 kids at home. So I don't know, just very unique experience in so many facets, like loading tons of kids into vans and driving across Spain to go ride some random trail. Like, I don't know, so sick.
Yeah, such a unique random experience, and like I'm sure, yeah, a lot of like just funny situations where you're like, damn, am I really doing this right now? Yeah, like shuttling a bunch of
Yeah,
kids.
I mean, you kind of wake up every day like, all right, morning workout, and then like after morning workout, you're like, damn, this is crazy. I'm like on this farm in the middle of Spain. I'm gonna go ride some cool ass trails later. Oh, and like the host of our of the the house we're staying at, he makes this crazy fermented alcohol beverage, and he gave us some to try. Like I don't know, just so many
Yeah.
crazy just travel experiences. But I did feel like you did get to like ingrain yourself in the community a tiny bit. Like I was saying, the grocery store. You started to have very familiar faces at the grocery store, and they began to recognize you. Um,
Yeah, that's cool that you like stayed in places long enough to like get a feel
oh
for it
yeah,
and like
oh yeah,
yeah, have it be more of like a cultural experience than just like a vacation instead.
yeah. I think that's a really cool part about it, and kind of part of the world class academy magic, if you will.
Yeah. And where did you all go on that year?
Right. Yes. So started out in Whistler, so 2 months in Whistler, and then a 2 week break, and then we moved on to Catalonia, Spain, so northeast of Barcelona is where we were. We were in Santa Coloma de Farners, and then after that, obviously out of my time, which we'll get into, but then we went to Queenstown, New Zealand, which was mind blowing. And then after that, it was to Finale Lagoon.
Pretty nice string of destinations. It's like it's a pretty good schedule.
Yeah, I mean, those, like, I would argue those four locations, like, for any one person to just have the opportunity to visit all four of those locations in their entire life, like, you're doing good. But to do them all in 1 year, that's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's a crazy opportunity. Um, so I think that's a good segue into what happened in New Zealand. I think you can probably take most of this, but yeah, for one reason or another, you didn't get to finish the semester about in New Zealand. So
Yeah.
what happened there?
So yeah, December 18th or 17th, I departed Spain, flew down straight to New Zealand. There, you do have a winter break, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. We did have like 3 weeks break. But I was like, oh, we're going to New Zealand next. Like, screw it. I'm going to just head straight down there because that place was tight. And uh, we did ride our mountain bikes quite a bit, and there was fun trails in Spain. But we didn't ride enough. We spent a lot of time at La Poma riding dirt jumps,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to ride my mountain bike on sick trails. So I was like, "Yep, I'm just blasting straight down there." Went straight down there. Queenstown was amazing, and yeah, it was just like having a blast, just riding Skyline every day, pedaling. Rode Coronet Peak one day, which was sick. That's a place that I've always wanted to ride. Um, yeah, just getting ingrained in the scene, just sussing it out, and just like amazed by how insane this place was going to be for the kids, for the school. Just one fateful morning, I actually went out for a bit of a pedal in the morning, pedal pushed up to the tops of Mexican Stitch Up or Mexican Stitch. I don't know. Rode that, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go rip some bike park laps. I mean, I remember riding the gondola a bit. I don't really know what happened. It's a bit embarrassing, but I mean, I had a life altering, almost, arguably life ending, disabling injury on a green return run at the bottom of the Skyline Bike Park, Thunder Goat. I think I high sided in a left hander on Thunder Goat right before you cross the access road. There was a good cutty rut forming into that turn at the time, And I remember some point of that day riding the gondola thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna mollywop that turn this lap. And then and then just kind of goes black after that. So what I did, I hit my head very hard. um very, very hard. I was unconscious. There luckily was a couple of people chilling out at the access road right at that part, because it kind of was like stopping point for some people who saw it. I never really investigated what exactly happened, but yeah, they saw it. They helped me out. I was unconscious. I threw up. I inhaled some of my vomit. But they called first responders. Helicopter actually came, picked me up from Queenstown, flew me to Christchurch for a more better equipped hospital. Yeah, I mean, I just hit my head super hard. I was unconscious. To quantify how unconscious I was, there is something called the Glasgow Coma Scale, and it ranges 3 to 12, 3 being the lowest, or 12 being the highest, best. Um, and yeah, I was at a 3 to 4, which is as low as it can go. Technically, any inanimate object, a rock, has a Glasgow Coma Scale score. It scores a 3. So I was basically a rock.
So that's like the deepest, like the lower the number, you're in a deeper coma.
Yeah, essentially what that means is you're not verbally responsive. Like you could yell, "Hey Zach, hey Zach, hey Zach." I don't do anything. You're not visually responsive. You pry open my eyes. I wave your hand around. My pupils don't track. I'm not responsive to touch. You can pinch my neck, pinch me. I don't respond at all. That's what that means. And
Yeah.
if there's some kind of response in any one of those things, visually, verbally, um, or to touch, then your score goes up. I had about a 3 to 4. The medical notes, luckily I got a very detailed notes of everything. Um, yeah, they ranged from 3 to 4 for the first several days of my injury. And it's rare to not be permanently disabled after going into a low GCS like I did for as long as I did, because it wasn't just moments of that. I was my GCS didn't rise above like a 6 for several days, which is incredibly scary.
As we were getting news, that was the tone of it, was like, yeah, kind of the reality of the situation when it comes to like someone being in a coma that long. So like the factor, like having this podcast, and we've ridden multiple times, it's honestly a pretty insane story. And yeah, I know you went through a lot to get to this point. So I guess what was the recovery like, I guess, from going, like, where did your memory pick up after the incident?
I had amnesia for about 2 weeks, so really there wasn't a whole lot of recovery till that point. Once I started passing these tests, we moved on to just really pretty basic like occupational therapy things. Like I don't know if I walked that entire time until then, really. But yeah, walking was weird. Like yeah, I could still walk. I didn't have any spinal injuries. I mean, actually, I did. I did have a compression fracture on my T4 vertebrae. Does that sound right? T4 something
Yeah,
something four.
yeah.
Um, I had a compressive fracture on that, but thankfully no other spinal injuries, nothing serious. Um, and certainly the difficulty walking wasn't because of that fracture in my vertebrae. It wasn't because of not being bedridden for 2 weeks. It wasn't because of that. No, it was because when you hit your head so hard like I did, um, the networks that your brain sends signals to the other parts of your body on, the neural pathways they're called, they get messed up. The neural pathways just aren't connected for all the communication to be done to walk and balance yourself. All those functions aren't connected, so you have to relearn them. And they have to reconnect these neural pathways, and you do that by practice. So yeah, I had terrible balance, couldn't walk without a walker. Um, I wish I remembered my first time trying to walk, first time getting out of the bed, but I don't. So I couldn't really walk, and from there it just went from walking to higher level functions like catching a ball, playing pass with my occupational therapist, doing certain kind of puzzles, memory tests. Yeah, just a lot of boring stuff, boring, tedious, hard work stuff. You go from you still have memories like, yeah, I was literally the head coach of a mountain bike school, and now I am learning, relearning, practicing like playing catch in this hospital in Christchurch, New Zealand, because I hit my head so damn hard. But yeah, you just have to live with that, or at least I just had to live with that, and just like, okay, this is the challenge I have to go through now. But yeah, a lot of simple stuff like that for several weeks before occupational therapists and the care team there at the hospital was like, yeah, you can go home now. You're not done. You're not anywhere near done recovering from this, but you can. New Zealand is tired of paying for your healthcare, so yeah, go home.
Getting hurt in New Zealand is probably one of the better places to have one of these things happen. If you're going to choose to have one, which I don't think anyone would recommend, but that must have been at least somewhat nice. What was it? What was it like coming back to the U.S. and then switching healthcare systems? I mean,
Oh my God.
like in addition to continuing your recovery.
Yeah. So yeah, something I'm eternally grateful for. Like, yeah, of all places, I picked a damn good place to do it because I never got charged a single cent. Month in the hospital, yeah, all that recovery, all that treatment, nothing, never a single cent, and that's epic because if that happened in the United States, I would just be bankrupt. I would just file for bankruptcy because the medical bills would be insane, even if you have insurance. Anyway, like your healthcare provider will assign you an advocate, if you will, just someone to help out in circumstances like I was in. Um, but yeah, that whole process was just an uphill battle. Like the insurance just tries to put up barricades for you everywhere every turn you take, it seems like. Luckily I was recovering extremely well. And I didn't need a very high level sophisticated amount of support. So yeah, I came back, had doctor's visits with neurologists, just an entire spectrum of the care team. And again, just working on balance. I had some issues with my shoulder. Like I just didn't have complete range of motion in my shoulder. And again, it wasn't due to any physical damage of my shoulder. It was due to the circuits in my brain just not knowing how to move my arm like that anymore, which is incredibly scary because just I got lucky with where I hit my head, really, is all I can believe. That the circuits to know how to function in other parts of my body didn't get messed up. Some people have a lot more difficult circumstances with this injury. I got incredibly lucky. I think I got incredibly lucky. I also think that I just had incredible amount of support in the hospital and just had a very driven focus on the recovery.
And I guess what was what was your headspace like, through this part of the recovery? I mean, at this point, did anyone have like an expectation for you, or did you have an expectation for yourself, um, as far as like where you would end up down the road of recovery?
I would say the entire time in the hospital in New Zealand, I felt like I lost things core to who I am. I believed I would never really mountain bike again, or just never would mountain bike again. I could, like I said, I really had difficulty just walking. So having that injury, like yeah, you can recover from it, but just like the thought of mountain biking again, the thought of hitting my head again was incredibly scary. So I just completely wrote off mountain biking, wrote off a lot of things I enjoy, as an active person. Just like I couldn't even think about running at the time. So getting back on a mountain bike was out of the question. That said, like I did start to like pick up things and move through the phases of the recovery extremely quick. I don't really know when it was. Sometime after I got back to the United States, I realized like, okay, I don't think riding a bike is out of the question again. Like, who knows about mountain biking, but I don't think riding a bike is out of the question. I was starting to ride my bike up and down the street in front of my house. And that was incredibly motivating, and just like that uplifted the spirits a lot. Like, okay, maybe I can like road bike. I felt that injury just like I said, it took something away from me, and I just accepted that there would be things that would be gone from my life, and I would have to learn how to just forge a new life, because I couldn't risk hitting my head like that again, or just hitting my head at all. Listening to Remy Morton in particular, like his recovery after his extremely brutal crash, like he never thought for a second like, no, I'm hopping, get me the fuck out of the hospital. I'm hopping back on my mountain bike right now. Like, I kind of wish I had that perspective, but you just have to understand, like for me, that it just different. Like that wasn't, it really just was kind of out of the question. Like, no, you can't. Bones are different than your brain. Not taking anything away from Remy, because his recovery, his experience is absolutely insane. Um, but it's just different. Like, I think one thing I do want to be clear on though is like, you don't ever, I feel you don't ever recover from head injuries like this. Like, truly recover. I think that's a bit impossible. You can forge a new path, but I don't think you can really write yourself off like, yep, I'm 100% good again. No. And the other thing is that nobody can see this injury. Nobody sees the scars. Nobody, I'm walking around like no one ever would think for a second that I went through something like this. I do think I've done a great deal of like moving on from this injury, but yeah, I don't think you ever truly recover from it. I mean, like I was saying, the neural pathways in your brain get all messed up and jumbled up. And the best way I have found to describe what it's like sometimes is, you have a brain that you're not familiar with. And that's a bit abstract, but if someone rearranged everything in a house, everything in your house, rearranged all the rooms, rearranged all the furniture, you would recognize all of it, but you wouldn't know where to go. Your brain just operates differently. Uh, I noticed that things were different. Some things were harder, some things were easier. Even puzzles are easier to concentrate on. I play a lot of Sudoku now. My balance was messed up. My timing was extremely different, and challenging. Some people have issues with emotions. Some people have issues with vision. Um, I'd say I've become a much more emotional person. Biggest thing that I've found other people experience too is like these weird panic attacks. Like I got one when I was riding earlier today. Like not scared that anything is gonna happen, but just like this like weird stomach dropping feeling. I was pedaling up a fire road when this happened, but just like stomach drops, cold sweats, and I'm just like, whoa, it's really trippy. And I've found out how to deal with it, but I don't know if panic attack is really the most accurate term, but it's the closest thing I have.
Yeah, it's so tough, and I feel like, I mean, I have, yeah, kind of some of my own experience with like head
Totally.
related injuries too, and I think it's tough because it's like the medical side of things struggles to understand it, and the general public is, even further behind that. So it's really hard to like relate this experience in any in any meaningful way. It's completely invisible as well.
Mm-hmm.
So because I feel like if you say like, oh, I broke my leg, or like even if it's a gnarlier injury, like I broke my back, and it took me 6 months to recover, a year, people can like understand and sympathize with that immediately. Like you don't have to go into a deep conversation of explaining
No.
what that means and how that affected your life. But with these injuries, it's different for every person and every head hit. So it's not like you get
Yep.
your stock, list of symptoms on every injury. And then, yeah, trying to explain that to someone that hasn't been through anything like that or anything similar, like it's just really hard to find common ground. So I feel like it can be sort of isolating in that way, where people just like it's really hard to stand, or it's really hard for people to understand without like really going into the weeds on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like how abstract I have to get
Yeah,
to
right.
explain things about this injury. Like one thing I want to touch on is like what it's like to be in a coma. I mean, like, um, at least for me, I had an experience that was completely different from really any other account. Well, the one other mountain biker's account of a coma that I listened to, Remy Morton's, he had extremely vivid dreams and memories and experiences, like terrifying experiences in an alternate reality, which, you know, I don't know if he really had much head trauma. I mean, I got to imagine he must have had some kind of head trauma in his injury just due to how severe it all was. But I didn't experience any sort of concrete sort of thoughts or visions or anything. Everything was incredibly abstract in my coma. There was no passage of time. Um, all I remember is being really an essence of emotions floating in some kind of void. Um, yeah, it's like being an astronaut in the ocean, man. But I don't know. I had you have feelings like what I remember, what I experienced was I had feelings. I was mainly positive feelings. It was happy. It was peaceful. People are around you. You're not really worried about things, or I wasn't really worried about things. I could feel energy. Never felt alone. I always felt safe. But there was no passage of time. Time wasn't a thing. I knew my parents were with me. I knew Rose was with me. I knew I had to get out of this weird purgatory I was in, but I wasn't scared that I was there. I wasn't in a rush to get out. I wasn't pressured or anything. I don't know. It is like this purgatory state. Like I feel like maybe it sounds a bit like death, but you know you're alive. You're not like I never had any negative feelings in that time, but it's just a very abstract reality. Like I don't have any visions of it. I just have really just emotions from that time and some kind of vague, fleeting memories and thoughts of what it was like. And then I don't know. And then you just wake up.
like what made you take the leap from like, oh, maybe I can, casually ride again, to like actually like getting on a mountain bike and like returning to trails, or like what you would consider like actual riding?
I just think after the time spent recovering, I did a lot of running. Just a lot of time spent running on trails and like practicing what I thought were like higher level coordination moves. Like when I was running on trails, I would like practice like hopping on like rocks as I was running along. Like, oh, okay, I'll like jump right here and land on that rock with my left foot and then bounce from there onto this rock, like just hopping from stone to stone, doing stuff like that. And like my balance started getting a lot better. And then, yeah, around that time when I started running again, there was no question that I would ride my mountain bike again. But I wanted to give it some time. The really incredible thing about all this that I haven't been terribly open about, but I'm fine with it now. Like I I came back to the United States and went through recovery, and then basically just went through all of the work that I had to do with my care team, my neurologist, my occupational therapist, my physical therapist. Went through all the work that they had for me, got to the point where they're like, yeah, I mean, you're doing really good. Like, there's not a whole lot else I can do for you. Once I got to that point, I was like, all right, well, I miss my girlfriend Rose a lot. I'm just gonna get, and she was living in Queenstown at the time, so I'm like, I'm gonna go back down there, and I went back down there, and my first time on a mountain bike, back on a mountain bike, was actually in Skyline Mountain Bike Park. Like first time on a mountain bike, I went and rode the turn that I almost died in. Like I don't know, like I think that whole part of the recovery was just like exactly what I needed actually. Um, or just it was incredibly helpful for my journey back to where I'm at now. Um, and I didn't go down there really picturing that. I just wanted to be back with Rose and see her again, and uh, yeah, and then just because that was taking up a large part of my mind, just like mental space. I was like, man, I'm at home. I was like traveling around the world like as a high school teacher, and now I'm like laying in bed all day at my parents' house. Like, screw this. Um, so yeah, I went and did that, and it was great. But like I said, there was no plans of mountain biking again. Really, like I certainly thought about it, like oh that'd be cool. But then yeah, then I just got around to doing it one day. It was sick, and then started mountain biking like once or twice a week from there, like pedaling McNearly Gnarly. And once that was in play, it was like, oh hell yeah! Like all right, I don't have to give up my old life. That I don't have to totally give up the old person that I thought I was. Like that was incredible. Um, yeah, because really to that point, I did not I didn't know who Zach was gonna be now because like, I was thinking about picking up surfing. And I was like thinking about all sorts of like, man, what do I do? Like I'm the kind of person that like really needs something to take up my time. I could still mountain bike, so that was sick. Um, crazy recovery process. Like I think there's just like some magic in it. It's different for everybody else, but what worked for me worked really well, and I'm really happy about everything that I did. I'm really grateful about everything that I did. I think that's one thing that's really interesting about all this is I am in like obviously I wish this never happened, but I am pretty grateful about what happened because this experience introduced me to a new spectrum of emotions and experiences, like human experience. This was the hardest thing I've been through in my life. Uh, And I acknowledge that at the same time, my life hasn't really been that hard up to the point of my injury. I had an easy childhood and young adulthood. Um, so I'm thankful in that regard for what the injury has taught me. Obviously, I wish I didn't happen, but it brought me so many new perspectives on what can happen in life, what kind of like what deep holes you can find yourself in, and it brought me a lot of perspective and experience there.
Yeah, man. I mean, from my perspective, you know, I was in New Zealand. You know, we heard the news that you went through the injury, and like, you know, I spoke to you. I'm not sure if you remember, but a few times, like on FaceTime or something, while you were in Christchurch. So you still weren't all there, and then you know, following the
Damn.
story, you're back in the States. I think I talked to you a few times there. I'm like, damn, you know,
Yeah.
Zach is sounding kind of like Zach. Like, I feel like he's coming a long way. And then it's like, oh, what? He's coming back to New Zealand? And then like we were still there. And then we hung
Yeah.
out. We hung out
Yep.
in Queenstown together. And like by that time, I'm like, holy crap, dude. Like, and I mean, obviously things had changed. Like you said, like you're never fully recovered from an injury like this. But like, I mean, it was like it was still Zach, and like you were there, like functioning at a really high level. I think at that point you hadn't ridden yet, but like I think you were getting close. I think we may have left before you started riding, but yeah, you were on the way up to like being like fairly. I mean, it's hard to say it, but like fairly normal, like from the outside looking in, you know. And it was like that was crazy. And I mean, yeah, what was the time frame from like I guess the injury to like coming back, and like that's kind of when things were kind of
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably about 3.5 months.
yeah,
Like
pretty quick, dude, pretty quick.
pretty like that amount of time you boil it down to weeks, like
Yeah.
12, 13, 14 weeks, like after an incredibly traumatic injury to he's doing it again.
Yeah, right. And I think that's kind of the next topic I want to get into, because I feel like if you're not in one of these sports, like anyone could from the outside looking in would say like, oh, you'd be like absolutely insane to ever ride a bike again, you know. Like, but I mean, I'm in the same situation, and so many mountain bikers are. Maybe not to this extent. I feel like yours is much more serious than the vast majority of any rider will go through, but it's like, yeah, we keep coming back. So what's your perspective on riding with regards to the head injury? Has it changed anything, how you look at riding at all? And like, what was the process like getting back into the swing of things? Because we rode not that long ago, and I mean, you're ripping, dude. Looking at you on the bike, it's like nothing ever happened. So I guess like, yeah, what's that whole process been like for you?
Yeah. Um Obviously the perspective on riding has changed a ton. Like I'm just happy to get out and ride, period, because yeah, there isn't a day that I ride my bike where I'm not like kind of reminded or have some acknowledgement of like, damn, this was almost taken away from me. So I'm just happy to be able to ride. And it very much now is fun focused, which riding should always be. But I would say throughout the coaching time, and in my like when I was a little bit more serious about racing, like every ride was kind of focused on like, okay, let's get faster. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that too. Like being a high level racer, every ride kind of is a bit of a training ride. Like how fast can I hit this corner? What et cetera, et cetera. And now it's just fun focused, but I don't think I'll ever really be that concerned with speed again. But I do still, like even today, I still do work on technique, and I am driven to still be the best mountain biker I can be. Not really for speed, but confidence and control and stability, to make sure this doesn't happen again. Um, so yeah, I still do work on technique and I still do make pretty big improvements. Like it is cool to hear like, oh yeah, like you're ripping, which I'm happy with how I'm riding and I am content with it. But like it's funny, I hear little tips from people that make like a world of difference in my riding. Like Ryan Kondrashov told me one time, Mick Hanna told me always keep positive pressure on your on the palms of your hands, and I was like, damn, okay, let's I'll try that. And like ever since learning to like focus on that in particular, just like improved my riding a ton. And then today, my brother was like, "You're riding all like back stiff, like really upright, like I don't know, try to like lean forward more." And then I did that, and I was like, "Oh, whoa!" Like front wheel traction is there, and cornering is making way more sense now. So yeah, just stoked to be riding. Happy to be riding and focused on just having fun. But I still do. There still is that drive to just like be the best rider I can be. Not for any reason, I guess. I'll probably race again, but do I care at all? Even in the most marginal bit about how I do? No. So yeah, I think that with the head injury has changed my perspective on riding, but also the time with World Class Academy changed it. I mean, like, what about you? Like, how has your perspective on riding changed over time? Because you went through similar like some similar trouble with head injuries, and I'm sure you don't want to experience another one.
I didn't have one that was nearly as bad as you, but just kind of like a
Right.
string of medium ones, and the big one was 2022 when I was out for like 5 or 6 months, and then I got another more minor one last year, and that's when I pretty much like stepped away kind of big time from riding for a little bit, even after my health was like back in it. And I think now I approach it just makes it way easier to like, I guess, cut out like all the crap that like might go into your riding, like either doing it for like an ego reason or like, you know, it's just the reality of like where I was at in my riding. Like, oh, I'm doing it for like this video here, and like I've got obligations to go race. Am I really confident in this move, or am I just like telling myself I'm confident right now? I think all that stuff has gotten like super clear to me. I don't care. I'm not trying to do this for any, because honestly, like, yeah, I feel like I've had fallen into that pitfall quite a bit in the past where, I'm like leading out a lap and like I just can't help myself but like try and throw down and like end up getting sketchy, and
Yeah.
it's like you end up doing things for the wrong reason. I feel like I just have like way more perspective on that. So it's like I'll do stuff that's like per se risky, but it's like if I'm doing it, I'm like 100% confident I'm going to stomp it. And if I'm not, I have no issue walking away from it. And it's kind of like you were saying too, it's just way more fun focused. And I think there's ways to, you know, like I'm still going to ride for videos and stuff, but there's just like that extra pressure that like I would put in on myself in the past to maybe like, all right, I'm going to pick it up here so I can like look cool, or like any of that stuff. It's just not even, it's way easier to walk away from those feelings. I still get them. Like, I feel like it's natural. I think I just do like a way better job of not letting those affect my riding. And I think I'm a better rider because of it, honestly.
For sure. Yeah, the head like the head games, like I think everyone goes through some serious head games in mountain biking, but coming back from like dealing with head games after injuries
Yeah.
are incredibly difficult. And yeah, that's one thing that I'm very grateful for, is that my injury wasn't on like a jump. Like I didn't crash on Dream or something.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of grateful for that, for the fact that it was just on like a green or blue. I don't even know what rating, grade 3 trail or whatever.
It was on a left-handed
Just on,
berm that anyone
yeah, like
anyone would ride.
anyone would ride. Like it just like kind of just shows like, yeah, just like crazy things can happen. I probably was like trying to push it. Like I said, I was trying to hit that cutty really hard, but
Yeah.
um, I don't know. That's just like pretty base level riding right there, and I think I'm happy that it happened on something like that rather than coming back with all these head games going into jumps. Like that would be way harder to come back from. Like, oh yeah, I hit this, like jumping is how I got really hurt. I don't want to do that anymore. No,
Yeah.
it's not like that for me, which I'm pretty glad that there's no fears attached with mountain biking, really. Like, yeah, just grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice not to have any like specific baggage giving you anxiety.
Totally.
Yeah, I think a funny experience, like touching on Dream, because when I was in New Zealand, that was something I was like kind of aware of because I was coming back from my big concussion. So I was really just trying to ride for fun, and like, there's Dream sitting there. Like I've watched videos of these jumps for years. I mean, it's riding bucket list stuff, and I filmed people on these jumps. I have ridden pretty much everything else in the bike park that would prepare you for Dream, and I feel good on it. But I really didn't want to just go out there and send it because I wanted to hit Dream. And I sat out Magaza Fest. I filmed that, and it was like towards the very end of our trip. I took because McNeely Gnarly runs right by there, so I would just be like riding McNeely Gnarly, and it was probably like the 15th time I had looked at Dream and saw people hit it. And then it was finally like, okay, I'm 100% confident I'm going to grease this. I went out there with my buddy, Sean, who's a really good rider. He's been hitting Dream, and I went out there and did, I think, one run up, maybe two, and then just hit them. Like I wasn't going there oh, I'm scared to hit these.
Yeah.
I'm figuring out if I'm going to hit it. It was just all right, I know I can do this. Cool. Did a setup run to feel what the step down felt like. And then I hit them. And he's like, whoa, dude, you just went and hit that. I'm like, well, I didn't come here to fuss around and be all stressed out. It's not like that nervous excitement of am I gonna make this? It's when I do something like Dream, it's because I've in that case, I spent maybe 2 months thinking through it, watching people hit it, and then I knew it was in my ability, and I was able to do it with confidence. And I think that's if you can remove that from your writing, yeah, that apprehensive guessing what's going to happen, I think that's a lot more appropriate for someone who's progressing in the sport, because you can find new ways to, things do work out, and that opens new pathways to progression. But for someone who's been doing it so long, it's at this point I need to be feeling good about what I'm doing, especially if it's hitting something like Dream. I was perfectly okay leaving New Zealand without hitting him.
I am a bit bummed I never got to hit Dream.
Yeah.
That was definitely a goal of mine. But yeah, like you were saying, I think for any rider who is contemplating hitting jumps like that, it's not really a question of you. I don't really think you're the type of rider to be hitting those jumps if at the session or preparing to hit them, you're wondering, oh, can I do it? no, it's like it's really like it's cut and dry. Like, oh, can I hit this? Yes, or no, I cannot. And if it's yes, then it's like, okay, let's let's figure it out. Like that's your whole. That's kind of what I feel like. Maybe your process, but that's how I feel I would attack something like that. Is okay. I know I can hit this. I've hit similar sized jumps. Like I've hit blue steel, but yeah, let's just like figure out what's the speed, what's like the takeoff going to look like, rather than like, oh, I've never hit like a jump like nearly this big. I'm just gonna send it and we'll go from there. Like no, it's way more calculated. Like
Maybe now more than ever, it's like I can, and I think it's just because like, I mean, you and me have both been riding for so long. We have such a range of experience to draw off of. I feel like it makes it easier to actually visualize like what it's going to feel like, off the lip. I can like
100%.
After watching so many people ride it, like I can visualize like with a high degree of confidence like what's going to happen. And it's like not just visualizing, but like you can predict like the feeling in your body, like okay, and and then it works out how.
And
I mean, at least in that case.
I think like I think at like after spending so much time on the bike, like there is so much muscle memory gained, and there is just like reactionary, like just you know how to react to feedback from your bike. Like if your bars get yanked up or pulled down or something, like you know how to position yourself, react to that, and manage stuff like that. So oh yeah, you can anticipate what the forces going off a lip like that are going to be like. The good thing about those lips is I would expect, and I feel like what I've heard is you basically just ride off of them.
Yeah.
That's how blue steel was. Like you go the right speed and you just ride off of them. Your suspension's not compressing or extending or anything really. You just ride off of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely helps that they're insanely well built.
They're not casually dug like, oh yeah, we're pretty sure this works. Like no, it's kind of a science to it.
Yeah.
I'm not actually 100% sure on Dream, but I know for a fact like bigger lines like Blue Steel and anything Nico Vink builds, like he's getting his protractor out, he's doing geometry, like he's checking the hangulations and measuring stuff, like he knows, like it's calculated.
Either way, no matter how they got there, Dreamline arrived at a place where it's dialed in, like
Totally.
Yeah, but the consequences are high, so it's still real.
For sure.
Yeah, I guess like going forward from returning to the bike and coming back to riding, like I guess you touched on it briefly, like operating more from like a fun standpoint, but at the moment, like what's motivating and inspiring you with regards to mountain biking and I guess life in general, if you want to take it that far.
I don't know about taking it that far, but I will I will say the most inspiring, motivating thing in mountain bike world to me is Shredder MTB zine or Shredder magazine. Just holy moly, so good. Food for the soul, or food for my soul that I think it's been hungry for, that I didn't know or never knew that I needed it. But the whole approach to the magazine is amazing. Just the issue 10 or is it 11? I was blown away by, and that one kind of plays on like two things that were really inspiring to me. But I feel like the last two issues of the magazine I've read have focused on creating memorable, meaningful, kind of durable content. I would even say just stuff that people put a lot of effort into, that dives into stuff that's not normally talked about maybe. in that same vein, Matt Begg and Hunter Paul and their creation of When Does the Trend End?
Yeah.
Again, incredibly inspiring. Just opened up a discussion and like kind of awoke me to like, yeah, this is nuts. Like what is going on in mountain biking right now? Like I do think mountain biking is in a pretty weird state. It's like it's better than it's ever been and before, but it's in a pretty interesting area right now. But just in general, what inspires me is just anything creative, something where people put more thought than just like whipping their phone out on the side of the trail to get an Instagram clip. Whether it's cool angles, whether it's like thoughtful music, um, and go deeper, like people being creative with their digging and being thoughtful with their digging. There is a place for just like quick, quick disposable clips on Instagram, disposable media, but yeah, all media doesn't need to be so thoughtful and full of effort. But certainly right now in the mountain bike world, I feel like almost everything is just quick, boom, 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 disposable content. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think the yeah, it's not a problem that that stuff exists.
no, no,
I think it's more of like where the incentives are for athletes, for everyday people that are trying to, maybe chase the athlete thing or be some sort of influencer. You lump myself in that category if you want, but there's a lot of incentives to, do a high amount of quick disposable content and keep it coming. So I think it's just a bummer that I feel like the industry as a whole has like moved more towards incentivizing like that sort of content.
yeah. Rather than yeah, I feel like that's like all the in all the focus, or majority of the focus and majority of the incentives are around just numbers, like oh, how many likes, followers, views, etc. Rather than oh, hey, this person's like really cool, really amazing. They inspire a lot of people to be better, or this person is like just a good person. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like just as worth it for a brand to sponsor someone who's got no social media but is like a big part of the local scene, um, and is like respected in the local community, and is a part of the local community than it is, it's so hard to quantify that.
Yeah,
Like put that in, how do you quantify that into a resume or a proposal to a brand? It's so hard. And like I'm not like, and that's something I was super challenged with when I was going down that route. And I mean, yeah, when it came time for proposal season these last couple of years, it was like, man, I feel like I have value, but it's so hard to quantify it when it's not culminated in a follower count or on a number on a list of social media analytics.
yeah, exactly. And like I'm sure between you and I, we know tons of people who are more than deserving of higher levels of support. Yet like they're not too on like they're not all about Instagram, and yeah, they don't get that support because they're not really motivated by Instagram. And I just think I think it's important for industry to realize this stuff, um, and yeah, like just take a step back and reconsider what we want mountain biking to look like, because certainly I don't think it's like a very inspiring sport for a lot of people right now, or I don't think it's terribly attractive to some people.
Yeah.
A lot of people write it off as like a dad sport, or I don't know, just think it looks really goofy or whatever it may be, and like that's okay for people to look like goofballs, but I don't know, it goes deeper than that. Like it it's so complex, and but yeah, go read Shredder Zine or watch When Does the Trend End?
Yeah, I think you can come at it from like an idealistic perspective. Like it would be cool to see the sport like in this place and like make a judgment on where it's at. But I feel like there's an actual argument, from like a marketing perspective, um, where I feel companies can be spending their marketing dollars in a more valuable way. I think it would actually benefit everyone, where I feel like there's a lot of potential, left on the table for people who, might not have the analytics to back it up. I feel like the companies would benefit, the scene would benefit, and, some people who are maybe getting overlooked would benefit. It's not like, oh, the sport should be this way, and the company should take a loss to support this vision. I feel like it would actually be a win-win for everyone. If the whole if the whole sponsorship influencer scene was just a little bit more dynamic.
There are a lot of people out there that like I want to recognize that do make really cool stuff. Like just one person in particular that kind of gets grouped into the whole mountain bike influencer genre, but like is a very valuable influencer and who does a lot of like kind of educational things, I think, like while being humorous, while doing some education, is Seabass, normal mountain biker. Like I think all of his content is really incredible and like really well done. Like he does clearly put effort into it, but like even if he like has just other clips where like maybe it was just like he whipped out his phone or something, I think just all of it comes from a really good place of like creating something cool, different, or just like educational, or yeah, I respect his content a lot. Um, and yeah, I mean, you and I have kind of known him for quite a while, and I first met him. He was filming like the California Enduro series, making like highlight videos of the race. Uh, so like yeah, he just like he is very core to the sport too as well, which
Yeah.
I respect that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the thing we're getting at is like it just comes across, like in the product, whatever it is. It might be subtle, but it comes across like
Yeah,
where it's coming from. And Seabass is an excellent example where it falls into a genre where there's a lot of people just trying to, grab likes and, doing a bunch of, the standard stuff. But Seabass's stuff, you can tell like it comes from a place of a guy who's like legitimately stoked on mountain biking and
exactly.
has put a lot of effort into making like really funny content that is also like pretty it's like you said, it's like it's still like pretty core and educational, without like being, I feel like he's
It's
struck
always positive.
it's always positive, and I feel like he's struck a really good balance with his stuff. And like, I mean, most of his videos make me laugh, and I'm like, yep, like spot on, dude.
And yeah, another thing to be said there too is like you and I know probably dozens of people who have like come and gone from the sport. Like
Yeah.
there are so many people that will show up and be like, "Oh man, this guy's like a freaking weapon on the race scene," or he's out here doing it. Like this guy's shredding, he's sick, and then they're around 3-4 years, and then they just turn into vapor. It's like, whoa, what happened to that guy? I don't know. It's so think that's another thing to be said. Like, you don't have to be in the sport for years to to be whatever. But I think, again, that's something to be said about Seabass. He's been around for a really long time. He hasn't gone anywhere. Like, he's gone through ebbs and flows of his own in mountain biking, I'm sure, and he's stuck with it. Like, he loves it. He clearly loves the sport, like, to his core.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in our group chat sending his videos. I think he had like under 5,000 followers, trying to be like hell legit. Like, yeah, we followed Seabass back in the day. But I do remember sending his videos. Just we were like, dude, this dude's freaking ripping, and he's huge. He's a unit, dude, and he's hauling ass on like local trails too. He's a NorCal dude, so we were like, yo, we know those trails, and he's making that shit look good.
Yeah. Just he's an inspiration.
Yeah.
He's sick.
Good example of doing the thing and keeping it real at the same time.
Keeping it real, coming from a good place. Happy to see him succeeding the way he is.
Yeah. You got anything else, man?
I got a couple of notes. Can we stop saying illegal trails? Like, I don't like it when people say that. Like, unless you build a trail through some pristine meadow of Yosemite or other national park or like preserve, the trail isn't illegal for existing. Like, it can be illegal to ride it, but trails really aren't illegal. That language only hurts mountain bikers, and I'm really tired of hearing that. You're not cool for riding illegal trails. Like, yeah, like you might be cool for riding Marin where the riding trails is illegal, but I don't know, just illegal trails don't really exist. And there are, I don't know, there's just, I just hear that a lot out there, and I'm like, man, stop saying that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess
cut that there.
I guess, yeah. Even the most illegal trails I know of in Marin, I guess what you're saying, the trails themselves aren't illegal. It's just
I mean, again, Marin, it's like kind of bordering on that like Yosemite analogy, like, but I don't know, any other California ride spot, like the trails aren't illegal. It's like, yeah, it's looked down upon that they're there. It's looked down upon to ride them, but the trail itself, like, they're not. They're gonna put the trail in handcuffs and throw it in jail. Like, no. Other things that are inspiring me. Other things I'm working on. I picked up that dad cam, little Sony handy cam, and just been throwing that in my pocket and just like whipping it out, filming homies, filming people shredding, and yeah, like it's got me back into that kind of trail peak creativity state that I missed. And so yeah, I'm trying to create some kind of longer format video that features a lot of people that takes a slice of what Northern California mountain bike culture, mountain bike scene is like. Yeah, so I want to make a longer. I'm going to make like a 20-30 minute film. Just what I see the mountain biking here is like, and excited for that. And that's been something I'm just like stoked for on rides. Like, oh yeah, stacking content for something that I want to make it. I want to make it into something that like I want to. Like, my vision of it is like having a premiere at some place and tons of people coming in, just having like a good time, like watching everyone in the video, watching the video together, creating more of a scene. I think that's something that I'm very inspired by lately after seeing really Queenstown. Just like, oh wow, this is nuts. Like, it really does do everything perfect in my eyes. Like everything that I love about mountain biking, it kind of does perfect, and like what I think the sport is, it does perfect.
Yeah, Queenstown is definitely a scene. Yeah, it'd be cool to have more of that in NorCal for sure. And I think, man, it's tough. Like I think the trails are, definitely a part of that. But I think starting with just having cool events, and yeah, if there's a video like the local scene can rally around, then that's a step in the right direction. And yeah, I think the video portion, that's something that's been that's paralleled my riding. It's really valuable to capture certain riders, certain riding scenes, whatever you want to call them. Like I look back at some of the videos I've done, and it's like, man, that was such a cool moment in time where like this one rider was peaking, like riding so good on like this one trail that was like so good at that time. And I feel like it's really easy to take that stuff for granted, like in the moment. Like, oh yeah, we got these trails over here, they're running good. Like we've got this crew guys, like or girls, like they're riding this stuff really good. And then, a year later, 4 people move away. Maybe a fire runs through the trails, and like that scene's no more. And I feel like that's happened to me a few times where it's like there's a crew going to North Star, we're all riding North Star, and you just think it's going to be that way forever. We're staying at homie's cabin, and then it's like,
Yeah.
A year goes by and that's just like not the case anymore. So I think it's like it's really special if you have a piece to look back on that like captures whatever that was that you enjoyed about the sport at that time in some sort of way.
Yeah. And certainly do think like our scene, our area is in a good place. Like there's lots of good riding, there's lots of sick riders. And yeah, documenting that is certainly a part of it. But I think just California has a weird, oh, it's just a bit like the perspective on it maybe is weird, or I just feel that many other destinations in the world have a lot more exposure in like media. Like, I mean, just plain simply, like all the 50-1 videos expose you to the culture of riding in UK, and like all the whole cruise perspective on riding. And then there's tons of content and media constantly coming out of Queenstown when it's summer down there. And it's like I think people are aware that riding is cool in California, but I don't feel like anything has really captured what it is, what's unique about it, what the people here are like, what riding here is like. Um,
Yeah, no one outside of like I guess California or the West Coast, if you go places like no one is, when you say you're from Northern California, you're like, oh, like Tahoe's up there, right?
yeah,
There's some people have no idea what it's like. So, and I feel also that the riders that come, it's just a NorCal thing, like the riders that come out of NorCal are not that flashy, and they're not they're not the people to like put it on the map. They're like the most low key like crushers, they're so it's such a NorCal thing, especially when you compare it to SoCal. It's not better or worse, but yeah, there's just way more like low key sort of dudes who are and girls who are just, yeah, they're just happier to fly under the radar. And I think that's at least part of the reason. I think, yeah, got to put NorCal on the map. There's some
yeah.
cool stuff happening up here.
There's cool stuff. It's such a finicky zone with just like all the politics, and just
Yeah.
like there's really no established mountain bike infrastructure, like at least popular gravity mountain biking infrastructure. There's not a lot of, but I think it'll get there.
Yeah.
There are exciting things happening. That one.
Cool. Well, I'll quickly wrap it up. I think an hour and almost 2 hours now. So we're running a bit long, but thanks, Zach, for coming on. It was good chatting with you. And I look forward to being back in NorCal. Trust me, dude. I'm in Mexico right now. If you didn't pick up by the Fiesta sounds happening outside my front door, but I'm definitely getting to the point where I'm missing the NorCal scene and hanging out with you and the rest of the crew. So
you're missing the monkeys. But yeah, certainly there is a void without you here, and yeah, looking forward to more days hanging out by the river and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
We'll have to get on the water again. That was a grand old time. That was sick.
Yeah, water sport edition, Team NorCal.
Hell yeah.
But sweet. Thanks, Zach. Thanks for chatting. And we'll have to do this again sometime.